Hello and welcome to U.S. Cricket Now, the podcast covering all things Major League Cricket. I'm Peter Della, and with me is Aaman Patel.
Coming up on tonight's show, Peter, we take a look at the Freedom's 7-wicket victory over the Texas Super Kings.
Fourth one in a row for the Washington Freedom this season, and the highest successful run chase in the history of Cognizant MLC.
We also hear exclusively from Major League Cricket CEO Johnny Grave.
Ultimately, what we want is really close games and a fantastic final.
And finally, we'll round up this weekend's results as the tournament continues to move to Grand Prairie Stadium. Don't forget to follow us at US Cricket Now on Instagram, X, and TikTok. And you can watch us on YouTube. Just search US Cricket Now.
Now, we're coming off of today's doubleheader at Grand Prairie Stadium, and Washington Freedom swept their weekend matches. They swept yesterday, and they win again tonight. 7 wickets over the Texas Super Kings. Mitchell Owen, 149 runs on the weekend, capped off with 89 off 52, and that was made possible in part by some butterfingers in the field for Texas Super Kings. You were out there. Was it a bit slick in the dewy conditions at night?
I think that Donovan Ferreras is going to be kicking himself a couple of times, really. There's one that was extremely tough, and yes, the dew factor comes in, but you would say he should have held on to those catches there. But it just goes to show the kind of form Mitch Owen's in. What's this saying? When things are going your way, they just keep going your way. And he's doing it with the ball. He broke that initial wicket, that initial partnership for MI New York earlier in the weekend, and then he took 3 wickets today. You're talking about a guy who could possibly get to 500 T20s over his career. That's how darn good he is, and he's showing it all throughout Major League Cricket.
And had a big partnership with Andres Gous, 119 runs for the second wicket. And at one point, they were quite a ways behind. After the power play, things slowed down a bit. They needed more than 2 runs and over at one stage, and then with about 4 overs to go, they were in a cakewalk. And Andres Gous also started a bit slowly, but caught up very quickly, ended 80 not out, 6 fours and 4 sixes. And we almost had a set of deja vu circumstances twice today, where it looked like potentially on 2 separate occasions, we might have the first American player to score a century in MLC. First with Unbeaten Chand, he needed about, I think it was 24 runs off of the last 32 runs that were needed to score for LA Knight Riders. And then Sherfane Rutherford came in and said, no, I want to hit some sixes. It's not going to be all for you. And then the same thing happened with Andres Gous. Mitchell Owen gets out, and then Glenn Maxwell says, no. I know you're getting close to a century, Andres, but I need to show what I can do here in Grand Prairie, just like I did in the Oakland Coliseum.
Yeah, and I think it's unfortunate he did get his 100, but to have Andres Gous continue to find the runs, which he wasn't really doing to start off the season. He felt a little stomach issue earlier on and is continuing to gather himself. Again, a lot of people in the States rate him as the best domestic batter we have, and he's showing as to why. And Unbeaten Chand is also carrying on his form. I mean, he's been brilliant, and he's the sole reason why LAKR are really in a position where they have a win, isn't he? Because he's the only individual currently on the roster to have scored a 50 in Major League Cricket for the Knight Riders. It's been him and Jason Roy since the 2024 season to do it. He's got 2 of them on the year, and he seems to be the really only functioning piece of that batting lineup, Peter.
That's what happened in today's doubleheader. Unbeaten Chand stepping up today for the Knight Riders as they win the wooden spoon battle. We've had a few of those as the Orcas remain winless, coming out on the wrong side of that result. And then for Washington Freedom, they had the win today, and then Mitchell Owen, he had the half century as well last night, 60 off 26 balls, 5 fours, 5 sixes, but arguably a bigger role was played down the order. Mark Chapman, the former Hong Kong international, now obviously with New Zealand, 45 not out off 32 balls. It was a 2-wicket win. It looked a little bit nervy towards the end. They were in control for most of the chase, but Mark Chapman was there at the end to make sure the Freedom swept their weekend slate at Grand Prairie Stadium.
Yeah, Peter, it's been brilliant to see the Washington Freedom show a little bit more depth and variety in their batting this season. Last year was a lot about Steve Smith and Travis Head, which is great, but oftentimes in tournament play, you need your whole lineup to succeed. And we've seen it come off the bat of Mitch Owen, of Roshan Ravindra, Andres Gous. We've seen it come off the bat now of Mark Chapman. And we haven't even gone to the likes of Obis Pinar and Mukhtar Ahmed. And even Jack Edwards has had a say with the bat. Glenn Phillips has had a say. So there's so many options for this team. This is the team that feels more well-rounded than last year, and that's scary for a defending champion side.
The hosts, 0 for 2 at Grand Prairie Stadium. More remarkable, Faf du Plessis, 169 runs on the losing side. He scored a century on Friday night against the Unicorns in a losing effort, and then again 69 runs tonight at the top of the order. 2 incredible individual performances, and he has nothing to show for it. The 100 came off 51 balls, 6-4, 7-6s, and then again tonight he looked like he was well on his way to another century. 69 off 31 balls, 8 4s and 4 6s, and what we've seen really is the toss is such a crucial factor in these night games at Grand Prairie Stadium. It doesn't seem like it matters how many runs you put on the board. If you can't defend 220 tonight, what can you defend? I mean, we saw in the opening game of the weekend, the target was 199 they set for Unicorns, and the Unicorns chased it down with almost 4 overs to spare. And then again tonight, an even stiffer target, 221 is set, and Freedom Canter. So more than the runs, Faf needs to focus on making the right call at the toss, apparently.
Yeah, he hasn't won a toss, and he's joked about it so far. He initially said in Oakland, no, I haven't won a toss, but we haven't lost a game. Hasn't gone that way for him in Grand Prairie. For me, the more concerning part is the fact that, and it really goes back to the San Francisco Unicorns game they had, was where they were in the 17th over. They were 166 for 3 when Faf departs. He scores a brilliant 100, and they're set to get somewhere between 220 to 230, and they falter down to 199. They scored 38 more runs from that position. That's just not going to cut it by any stretch of the imagination. And the depth we spoke about with the Freedom, that depth is lacking in the Super Kings. They haven't found the right order. Now, Marcus Stoinis was brilliant today. Milind Kumar played a great role. Shubham Ranjani could get in on the act a bit. But they needed some more depth. That's going to be their Achilles heel. And then with the bowling, the biggest issue is they just don't have wicket takers. And it's been something that's happened with them all 3 seasons. And you're expecting Noor Ahmed to come off this brilliant IPL where he was the best bowler, leading a wicket taker by a mile. And he hasn't had that same luck coming to Texas. It was brilliant in Oakland. But he's gone none for almost 90 runs spread across 2 games. And that's unheard of for the left-arm Chinaman. But he's just been expensive. And tonight, they didn't even bowl a single domestic option. Didn't use a Milind Kumar. Calvin Savage, we heard, was hurt. Couldn't use him. Didn't use a Shubham Ranjani. Mostyn was left out of the team. And their bowling options have not worked for them, period.
Well, you talked about Noor Ahmed. 8 wickets for 76 runs at Oakland Coliseum in 2 matches at Grand Prairie Stadium. No wickets, and he's conceded 94 runs. He gave up none for 50 on Friday night, and then none for 44 again today. And I'm just curious, you're there on the ground here in Grand Prairie, Aaman. Is it harder to grip the ball in the second innings? The batting seems to be easier, especially in the second half of the chase. That was something that Faf du Plessis mentioned, that the ball just skids on and the bowlers don't have much to work with once it gets past the 10th over in the chase. Is it tough to grip the ball for a spinner in those conditions?
Yeah, I mean, it's always difficult to grip a wet ball, and the seam kind of starts to maneuver a bit. It might start to pop up, and you just have a tough time doing what you usually do with a fresh ball, with a ball that's in decent condition when it's wet. But I think I look at that and I say, well, those are going to be the conditions. That there's going to be dew, and you're going to have to bowl. It's your 3rd year in the league, and you've got to figure out how to do it, right? You're not always going to get the opportunity to win the toss, to have a bowl first and get the opportunity to bat with the skid. So you have to plan for it, and you have to have options to go to. That's why for me, Milind Kumar would have been such a sound option. Yes, I know he's a spinner. He's not getting huge turn, but he's crafty, and he doesn't do so much out of the hand to where I thought it would be a huge issue for him to just bowl the 1 over. Ferreira bowled a couple and was expensive. Could have split that one up, give one to Milind, and see if he could opt to the left-hander.
Yeah, Millen is somebody, when he's bowled for USA, he's somebody who's most effective when he just darts the ball in and he's using his change of pace. He's not a big turner of the ball, but when he confuses batsmen with his change of pace, speeding the ball up, slowing it down, that's how he usually gets a lot of wickets. And I was mildly surprised that we didn't see him tonight. Maybe we'll see him in the future. Who knows? Now, the one team we haven't mentioned really over the course of the weekend is the undefeated side, San Francisco Unicorns. They lose Corey Anderson for the season, Aaman. And it's just a little blip because Matthew Short takes over the captaincy and Finn Allen is very quietly making a big claim, Aaman, for player of the tournament honors in the first half of this campaign. 78 off 35, 117-run partnership with Matthew Short, 4 4s and 8 6s. And again, he seems like he's a bit of the anomaly in this season. That electric century he had to start off the tournament at Oakland Coliseum, and now he goes to Grand Prairie, Texas, and he just keeps on ticking.
Yeah, and I said it on air too, because we're trying to assess conditions here at Grand Prairie and saying it's maybe 220 par, and that feels what it is maybe now. And you mentioned no Corey Anderson. Well, it helps that this team has a lot of options, and they've really invested domestically. They had brought in Kareem McGore, didn't play, but what I love is they went out and they signed Jamar Hamilton to come back into the team after not initially drafting him. Well, what he does is he gives you a wicket-keeping option, so you can slot him in, a number 7 bat, so it gives you a little bit more depth there, and then maybe you can think about bringing back a Cooper Connolly into the team. Maybe you're Mario Shepard in for a Tim Seifert. So this is a team, because their top order is firing so well, they're not, forced to say, hey, Tim, you have to play. If you want to give the gloves to the domestic Jamar Hamilton, boom, and then we can just bring in a Mario Shepard and you can bring in a Cooper Connolly just because Finn Allen has been so brilliant up top the order.
Now, before we left Oakland Coliseum, I got a chance to speak to the CEO of Major League Cricket, Johnny Grave, who shared his thoughts on the start of Season 3, his hopes for the future of each team having their own stadiums, as well as the vital role MLC is playing in growing the game across America. And here's what Johnny had to say.
We're just about wrapping up the first week of matches at Oakland Coliseum. What are your overall thoughts on how this experience has gone from the organizational side?
Yeah, it's been an unbelievable start to Season 3, really. We many of us thought that the Oakland Coliseum would be a fantastic venue for cricket, and I think we're now seeing that, and the last sort of week here, 35,000 fans coming in. I think the vast majority of them will become, cricket advocates and evangelists for the sport, because I think they've all had a great time and enjoyed watching some top level cricket. I think if you'd said to us we'd open the games at the Coliseum with wickets from New York that were going to produce, a world record score on the first night, a last ball finish on the second night, we would have taken that. And more importantly, I think just we've done what Major League Cricket has done since Ball 1, really, in Tournament 1, which is get the cricket right. So we spent a lot of time on a very complicated and complex process of dropping in the wickets and bringing them across from New York. But I think that investment has been repaid in this opening week, and it certainly bodes well. And we're really excited about coming back here and building on what we've achieved in this first week.
And that's something a lot of people have been asking me about in the crowd and outside of the ground is, will cricket be coming back to the Coliseum? Will this be an annual thing? And as far as you're indicating, the answer is yes.
We certainly hope so. I mean, the future of the Coliseum is a little bit uncertain due to the joint venture between the A's and the city. But I think everyone wants cricket to come back. I think everyone's seen the potential of the sport. I think everyone's enjoyed it, as I said earlier. And look, we're very, very keen to come back, not just with Major League Cricket, but also, to bring some of the biggest teams in the world to play the US here. So, we're very keen to come back, and hopefully we can continue to work and build on the relationships that we've started to strike, not just here at the Coliseum and with the city and the county, but also the wider Bay Area community, and certainly with the San Francisco Unicorns being 3 from 3 here. We're certainly hoping that we're developing a real home team support behind the Unicorns, which is only going to bode well for Major League Cricket.
The lack of venues for some of the other teams, and that has been something that is a promise or contractually obligated by the owners. You've got to provide your own venue by a certain point in time. This experience, you talked about Grand Prairie and the Texas Super Kings, but the amount of support that the Unicorns have been getting, how much pressure does that put on some of the other owners, whether it's Seattle, Washington, New York? How much pressure is now being put on them by seeing what is happening here in Oakland and in Texas to stress to them that they need to start to have a bit more sense of urgency to get their venues up and going in their respective locations?
Yeah, look, I think all the owners, as I said, are fully committed to build local stadiums. They've made, I would summarise progress as good progress across all of the teams. Building and finding sites and building is a lengthy process in the US, something that's surprised me, I think. I thought it would be quicker and easier to develop in this country, and it's not. It's not overly bureaucratic, but it's a lengthy process of going through the various permits and rules and regs you need to be able to build. But I don't think there's pressure on the owners because they're committed to do it. I think what this has sort of provided the owners is a massive insight as to what happens when you do have a home ground, and that actually, in terms of building the value of your franchise, in terms of increasing the number of fans that follow you, having a home base is critical. And I think they've seen that here in the Bay Area with the kind of support the Unicorns have had. And bear in mind, this is really only the first year. I think I'm very confident that when the Unicorns come back next year with Major League Cricket, we're going to see even more orange in the stands, in which case it's a great example to the owners and their investment groups of what happens when you build a home stadium. So I think if anything, it's just given them more motivation to do it and more focus. I'm confident that certainly by 2027 we'll have more home teams and more venues.
What is one thing that has surprised you in a good way about the first week here at Oakland Coliseum?
I think two things really. I think the staff here at the Coliseum, some of these staff, as you know, have been working here 34 years, genuinely excited when you're walking past the security guards and the people that have been here from back in the Raiders' day and going, how exciting a sport cricket is and starting to understand it. I think the experience that fans have got here, there's not really a bad seat in the Oakland Coliseum in terms of watching the live action. And T20 cricket played under lights is in my opinion, when it's at its best. And as we're seeing here now, 21 runs off 12 balls to win the game is the kind of finish that will leave spectators. Obviously, one team will be disappointed, but it's an exciting game, and I think that's what fans want to see.
What do you feel is the number one priority for improvement, not just through the course of this season, but for 2026?
Yeah, obviously I'm still relatively new to Major League Cricket, so it's difficult to say one thing. I would say we're looking to improve every aspect of what we've done, and certainly one of the things that we'll be looking to do very, very quickly after this season is do a thorough review, but then launch and announce the window for next year early. I think that gives players, coaching staff, us as executives, and the venues time to really plan for next year. We'll obviously need to do more marketing and awareness. Cricket is still an unknown sport really in this country, and whilst we've made huge progress as a league, we're still growing the sport and we're still having to sell the concept and build awareness that cricket exists. I think that is growing through the Olympics and through the World Cup last year and the IPL and others. People are aware of the sport. They're aware of the Virat Kohli kind of social media numbers, the fact that the IPL is the second league to NFL. But I don't think mainstream America knows that this level and quality of cricket is being played in their own backyard. So we've got to do a lot more to market and promote the game. And part of that is building the profile of the domestic players. So, the role that we have in partnership with USA Cricket to build the US cricket team is also a really important part of everything that we're trying to do. So difficult to say one thing, but we're certainly looking to a number of things differently next year.
When you say marketing and awareness, one of the things that stood out to me just in the build up to these matches here and even through the course of the first weekend was how much more promotional effort had gone into these matches, specifically for the Unicorns. You drive up and down the freeways on 880 and go into the BART stations and you'd see ads specifically for the Unicorns and also for Major League Cricket, but it was cricket at the Coliseum. And yet you still feel more can be done. Is there anything specifically within that framework that you feel it could be enhanced that would meet your desired targeted improvement?
Everything, but at the same time, I think we have created a new level for Major League Cricket. I think the collaboration we've had, marketing and promoting with the Unicorns, has been, one of the biggest successes. Really, I think the way that we've worked with the local team to push that bar higher. As you say, the regional sport networks are crucial. People coming through San Francisco Airport saying, "Oh, the cricket's on the TV screens." As you say, going up and down the high street, seeing the outdoor media, the amount of publicity and PR we've had, which is partly because cricket is coming to the West Coast. It's partly also because the Coliseum is such an iconic venue and it's had teams leave, and this is sport coming back. There's a great story to that. We've learned an awful lot, and I think we've set a standard now for marketing and promoting with the city, with the council, with the local media and with the local team that we now need to make sure that we replicate in Texas with the Super Kings, if not this year, definitely next year. And then start to build that fandom. But we've got, I would say, we need to be noisier earlier. At the end of the day, this project was complicated and uncertain, and only really when we got full certainty that we could pull it off did we start to market and promote it. So from my side, we need to do that an awful lot earlier, and we need to get the hype going, and everything that you said executed better but earlier. And I think then what we'll see is a much higher level of awareness. But I think the main thing we've got is we've got now a database of 35,000 people in the Bay Area that have been to Major League Cricket, know what it is, and that we can speak to and build a relationship with about next year, and encourage them, as I said earlier, to be advocates and evangelists and say, bring your co-walkers, bring your friends, bring your family. Cricket's a great sport, it's a great night out, and come back.
Anything else you want to say about this Oakland Coliseum experience for the first week and what you're looking forward to for the rest of the season?
I think the rest of the season is just good quality cricket. It's obviously going to be hotter in Dallas. First time we're going to go to South Florida, Broward County, but I think again we're going to be playing under lights in established stadiums with permanent facilities. And I think that bodes well for the customer experience and for the players and media alike. And ultimately what we want is really close games and a fantastic final. But we're already starting to think and plan about next year and how we can do it bigger and better. And I hope what we're going to start to do as well is really focus on the US national teams and how we can create effectively a 3-year plan that will start in early 26 around what we do in 26, 27 and 28 to make sure that the team actually capitalise, because there's going to be nothing like a US team playing in the Olympics going for a medal, and we've got to make sure that we do everything we can between now and then to turn the US team into genuine medal hopes. We saw obviously that fantastic game last year in Dallas where they beat Pakistan, which I think gives all of us hope that they could have that moment in Los Angeles, and if they did, what that would do to the sport would just be phenomenal. And so we've got to work really hard on Major League Cricket, but also not forget the minor league cricket, and making sure we're working closely with USA Cricket to develop the US national teams is still front of centre in what we're doing. So it's a big, wide, complicated project, but I think everything that we've done here bodes really well and is extremely positive.
Johnny Grave, Major League Cricket CEO, thank you for your time.
Alrighty, so let's take a look at the points table that we have coming up. And by no surprise, Peter, the two teams at the top of it, well, it's your finals matchup from last year. It's the Freedom and it's the San Francisco Unicorns. Of course, Unicorns with that net run rate jump to the top. And then we keep moving on. The Texas Super Kings find their way into third place, followed by MI New York, the Seattle Orcas. They claim to win. And LAKR still winless, Peter. Any surprises there for you?
The Texas Super Kings just coming off of an undefeated run at Oakland Coliseum, the way that they've lost 2 games at home is the thing that stands out to me. I thought they would have dominated, and you had talked about Faf du Plessis. Was he going to hit form once he got to Grand Prairie Stadium? He scored so many runs there, and he has, and yet it hasn't resulted in wins, remarkably enough. I think that's the most fascinating part for me. We'll see if he can win a toss. He's 0 for 5 on the season. Maybe that'll help turn the record around at Grand Prairie Stadium. In terms of the other teams, they've been keeping their form going from last season. You talked about it, the Unicorns and Freedoms at the top of the table, and then on the flip side, the Orcas and the Knight Riders are struggling mightily.
The 2 Unicorns matches in the 3 days. Peter, what matchup for you seems to be the most enticing?
Well, for me, I'd have to say the one to start off with is MI New York and San Francisco Unicorns. MI New York still loaded with talent, and it's just a matter of piecing it together at the right time. Penna Patel has been phenomenal for MI New York at the top of the order. You also talked about Quentin DeCock. He loves playing in Grand Prairie Stadium, and what does he do? He starts off with a half century. Now, it was in a losing effort, but again, it's a venue he's shown he likes batting at. If he can continue that scoring pace in the matchup coming up against the Unicorns, maybe that could be how the Unicorns have their undefeated record burst. But that, to me, is the most enticing matchup. And then I cannot see at this point in time how LA Knight Riders or Seattle Orcas are going to turn their form around against two sides that each of the bottom feeders on the table, they look at this point overmatched. There's going to have to be some serious changes, not just in personnel, utilizing the bench, see if you can turn to some options that haven't gotten an opportunity yet, but also I just think the Unicorns are too powerful. The Sparkle Army, the Sparkle Army is just too much to deal with.
Yeah, I know that's going to be a very tough matchup for either of those two teams. I think with the Texas Super Kings and LKR game, I think there's some interesting opportunities to change the lineups up a bit. I think for Texas, if Devin Conway isn't fit and ready to go, it'd be an opportunity to get Josh Trump back into the 11, scored a half century to close off last season, comes in for me, Smith Patel, comes in to keep, and just like for like can take him out, and then you can shuffle the order how you'd like to. If he wants to open, or you move Cy up to opening and then jump everybody up a spot. I think that's a good opportunity for them to mix up the order around, or maybe even bring back a Mohamed Mohsen, because it feels like they are needing a bowling option. And then for LAKR, I think the option for them, really, Narayan's going to have to come back. So who goes out? Does Robin Powell sit? Does Shafrain Rutherford sit? And domestically, Matt Trump, can't really blame him for what he's done, has that big 41. Does he come in for the likes of maybe a Nitish Kumar, who hasn't really provided the goods? Do they try a Karthik Pali at some point, maybe just to see if the left arm spinner can change it? So I think that game in particular, there's a really cool opportunity for each team to really reinvent themselves.
And then another thing to monitor for LA Knight Riders, the fitness of Ali Khan. He's been dealing with some back spasms. That's why he's not been in the lineup. Courtney Dry has done fairly well with the opportunities he's had in place of Ali Khan, and you wonder, will they keep him in the lineup? Will they bring in Ali Khan and use both of them as domestic bowling options? And is that going to mean Nitish Kumar makes way? So there's a couple things for LA Knight Riders to consider, but Ali Khan, he's been missing in action through injury, and you wonder if he can make a return to the lineup, will that have an impact for the Knight Riders going forward? Now, it's question time here on U.S. Cricket Now. We've got a question from Steve, who asks, we saw some great fan interactions in Oakland, but I want to know, what more can fans do to help grow the sport further in the U.S.? Well, Steve, I'm somebody who believes in a one-man-at-a-time approach. There's nothing better than word of mouth, and if you can tell your friends, hey, MLC is happening in Grand Prairie. MLC is happening in Broward County in Florida. MLC is something we should go out and buy a ticket to. Let's go. Let's see what it's all about. There's nothing better than just taking one person and one set of friends at a time. I think sometimes people get overwhelmed in the cricket community in the U.S. thinking, we need to get 10,000 people overnight. It all starts with one. You got to start somewhere. That's always been my approach when I've tried to introduce new people to the sport. Thank you, Steve, for sending us that question. And if you've got a question out there, email us at uscricketnow@gmail.com, and you might have your question read on the next edition of US Cricket Now. You can follow US Cricket Now on YouTube, Instagram, X, and TikTok. Just search US Cricket Now. Don't forget to subscribe, follow, and rate us on Apple and Spotify. That's it for this episode of US Cricket Now. US Cricket Now is a Viral Tribe Entertainment and Square Cut production. See you on Thursday as we review all the first half of the week's action after the conclusion of Wednesday night's game between Seattle Orcas and San Francisco Unicorns. On behalf of Aaman Patel, I'm Peter Della Penna. See you next time on U.S. Cricket Now.